Okay, we are live, but we do have to let the stream breathe just for a few seconds. Make sure we've got 5 green check marks across the board. And we're good. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, my fellow football priest, my fellow co-host. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, when Vic Fangio met with the media earlier today, there was no word on whether or not the Broncos-Patriots game was going to get flexed. And it turned out to happen. About 4:30 today, we learned the Broncos are not going to play on Sunday. It's going to be Monday night. Going to get a double header on Monday. But the good news this time, Broncos are the early game this time around instead of us having to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, for the gut reaction.
Yeah, the world eagerly awaits Jarrett Stidham versus Brett Rypien. And I know it's an extra day for maybe Cam Newton to get healthy or an extra day for Drew Lock to get healthy. I still think it's going to be Rypien versus Stidham. Though it's a primetime game now. If the Broncos can pull off the upset, they'll do it in front of a national audience. And it's just, I don't really have many thoughts about it, Chad. I'm happy for the safety point of view. I think the players, their minds would be at ease, put at ease, not having to play on such a short notice. The contamination aspect from the Patriots maybe infecting the Broncos. I like more prime time. I'm happy it's not 9:30, 8 o'clock. I'm happy it's 7 o'clock, but that's about it.
On one hand, you go, well, dang it, it gives Cam Newton, it gives Stephon Gilmore more of a chance to get back, make it out of the Q word, make it out of quarantine. But it also increases the probability of Drew Lock being able to play, as you mentioned. And I do think, Zach, that, and especially today, I listened to the Elway Access interview on the Broncos team site. Elway talking to Phil, what's his last name? Milani. And you can tell, dude, and just reading the tonality of John Elway and then also the content of what he said, they want Drew Lock to play this week. I remind everybody, there's a reason why they didn't put him on injured reserve, and that's because they expected and hoped to get him back this week. Elway said, Zach, quote, Drew Lock's shoulder is feeling good. Now, I know in terms of the rep rotation, he's basically been, because they got 4 quarterbacks on the roster currently, he's kind of been the last guy at the table during the portion of practice in which media can view it. We don't know, though, Zach, what's being said or what's being done behind closed doors. And the Broncos are still in a fortuitous situation because everyone knows he's injured. Everyone knows they can list him as limited. They can say he's questionable. They can even say he's doubtful on the injury report for the game, Zach. And the Patriots, they have no recourse. There's nothing that they can do. And the Broncos can make a game time decision, yet knowing 2, 3, 4 days in advance that it's going to be Lock. They're just, if you use a little gamesmanship here, you might give yourself a slight advantage if you're Vic Fangio.
You're giving Belichick a taste of his own medicine. And I still happen to believe it's going to be Brett Rypien. I think you and I disagree. The Broncos may have hoped Drew Lock can return for this game, but I don't think their expectation or their intention was for Lock to return. Miami in week 6 is a much more softer landing spot, targeted return for Lock. I think it's gamesmanship on Elway's part as well. I think he's echoing what Fangio said with the 50-50 comment. He wants to make the Patriots prepare for Lock and Brett Rypien, maybe even Blake Bortles, Jeff Driscoll. Like you mentioned, they have 4 quarterbacks on the active roster. Any one of them can play. So it's just throwing Belichick a taste of his own medicine. And I still think, though, it's going to be Rypien when it's all said and done.
We shall see. We'll continue to break it down. There's a lot of content to get to today because we heard from Vic Fangio. We heard from Pat Shurmur. We heard from Ed Donato. A few storylines, something Shelby Harris had to say about the game getting flexed today that we're going to talk about. And then, of course, it's our favorite podcast of the week. It is the Mile High Mailbag. So we're going to take a peek inside that, see what's on y'all's mind, get your questions in, any topics, any super chats, get them in, and we'll get to those here in just a few minutes. Because as you know, Zach and I are your football priests. Each and every week, we're here to offer you the absolution and answers to your burning Broncos questions. But first, guys, we got to take care of a couple of matters of business, starting with sportsbetting.com. This live stream pod is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. And as you know, Broncos country, gambling is now legal in the state of Colorado. Here's what makes sportsbetting.com the go-to no-brainer for sports fans. You get the sharp odds and low juice. You get hassle-free bonuses. You get 24/7 live support, and it's always a real person, and it's always in the United States. The kicker, though, guys, pay close attention here. At sportsbetting.com, you get a 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $500. Not just one bet, but all of your bets. So how it works is like this. You get to play for a week. If your losses exceed your winnings, at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com is going to cover 100% of the difference up to $500, and you can roll that over one time. So head on over to sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That's sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. Capitalize on a risk-free week of sports betting up to $500. All right, Zach, a couple other things real quick, and then we'll dive right back into the mailbag and the topics for today. Guys, Huddle Up and Mile High Huddle, we are growing at just an insane rate, and we have you to thank for that. But we also have a lot of new listeners and subscribers and viewers and members of this community, and we want to make sure everyone knows how to connect with us. So the best thing to do, first and foremost, in terms of staying on top of the news, staying on top of programming, giveaways, everything with regard to the podcast, follow us on Twitter at HuddleUpPod, and then also follow the main account at Mile High Huddle. If you do those two things, you're not going to miss anything pod-related or breaking Broncos news and analysis. And then a gentle reminder, head on over to huddleuppod.com and get your swag on. Get yourself a Mile High Huddle trucker hat. Get yourself, there's polos, there's face masks, there's the Football Priest t-shirt, the Football Priest hat, a little something for everybody. It's another way that you can support what we're doing here at MHH, and then also get a little something for yourself out of the whole arrangement. And if you're not in a position, though, to patronize the merch store, it's all good. Whether you're with us live in the moment right now, we love you guys, or listening after the fact as an on-demand podcast, love you as well. You can each do these three things. Subscribe, like. It's especially crucial on YouTube and Facebook that you like this video if you're with us. But if you really think Zach and I are doing a good job, if you think we're worthy of it, okay, share this video out. That's the best thing you can do. You sharing this video out is worth more to Zach and I than 10 podcasts or 10 podcast advertisers. Let me put it that way, than 10 advertisers. So that's more powerful. It's more meaningful. Do it. Share this video out there, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or even the podcast if you're listening on demand. Those three things: subscribe, like, share. You guys have no idea how much it helps us. And then one last thing, shout out to our Facebook supporters. We love you guys. If you are amongst our Facebook community and you would like to become an official supporter of Mile High Huddle, just go to facebook.com/milehighhuddle, and you'll see the big blue button that says become a supporter. Click that. Boom. You're in like Flynn. We love our Facebook supporters. Mile High salute to you guys. Appreciate you. All right, Zach, let's get to John. Throw up that Shelby Harris quote, because this brings up an interesting point. Not all teams have behaved equally with regard to the bug that shall go unmentioned. You know, and there's probably a certain sense of arbitrary randomness to who contracts the bug, because it could simply be ordering pizza delivery and you touch a pizza box that was delivered to you and you eat your pizza and then you touch your eye, boom. If it's on there, you could contract it. And Zach, it's not necessarily anything you did that was high risk, or, you know, you're not necessarily at fault. It's just the randomness of life. But at the same time, you can see that it's happening to certain teams. And Shelby Harris brings up what I think is a very salient point. He said, quote, "Why are we getting punished when we did nothing wrong?" In other words, having the game moved from Sunday to Monday. The Pats go on a bye next week, and we're stuck on a short week playing the Dolphins. Help it make sense. What's your reaction to that topic?
I understand where he's coming from, but every NFL player knew the risk if they were going to opt into this season. And not just the safety risk, but how weird and uncharted it's going to be, and how unique it's going to be, and how things can change on a week-to-week basis. Talking about having a Week 18, talking about moving bye weeks around, and the way the schedule was devised. I understand where he's coming from here. I think he's trying to stoke that favoritism from the Patriots on the NFL side a little. I think he's just playing into the rivalry, if there is one, between the Broncos and the Patriots. I understand the way he's thinking, but my feeling is everyone knew the stakes. Everyone knew what was going to be this season and this season alone, exclusive to 2020. And it's not fair. But you know what? Football's not fair. Life's not fair. You got to roll with the punches, especially in a year like this, Chad.
And the Patriots have basically been locked out of their facility. Like, if you're looking at it from a competitive balance standpoint, like, it's not exactly, I get it. They're the ones that, for how, whether it was arbitrary or by virtue of individual behavior that allowed this in. Nevertheless, if you want competitive balance in the league, they've not really been able to prepare for the Broncos in the traditional sense. Their practices, their whole week of preparation has been thrown off. But I do understand why the Broncos were holding on for the possibility of it being Sunday, not just because of the fact that it's a better chance you don't get Cam Newton and you don't get Stephon Gilmore. But as Shelby said, suddenly you get a traditional 1 week turnaround turns into a short week, Zach, and that's not fair to the Broncos. But at the same time, as you mentioned, this is just an outlier year where teams just have to be ready and willing to roll with the punches.
And listen, I mean, it's your next opponent that's up on the schedule right now. Let's focus on winning that game. And I kind of like what Mike Tomlin said, because the Steelers got screwed, Chad. They had their bye week early, and they're going to play 13 straight weeks now. And his one answer to that question was, we do not care. And I love that mentality. I love that way of thinking. It sucks. It's not fair. It's the Patriots once again kind of gaming the system in a roundabout way, but just focus on the task at hand, focus on your next opponent, and beat the Patriots, hopefully, and move on.
It's also, I think, a little bit of a case of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Everybody knows that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick seem to kind of have a unique and special relationship with Roger Goodell in the NFL front office. And when things break, they tend to break in New England's favor. And maybe that's just due to the fact that, they're the most dominant team of the modern era. Or it might just have something to do with Robert Kraft being a dang good campaigner as it relates to, throwing his weight around with the league office.
Let's give him a hand for that, Chad.
Indeed. WE jumping in on Super Chat. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for your support. As always, one of the superstars in our community. New England haven't practiced this week or even been in the facility, so it kind of makes sense to give them an extra day of practice. Rypien on primetime again. Yeah, so it's, you know what? The primetime lights of Thursday night were not too bright for Brett Rypien, and if it does indeed end up being Brett Rypien who gets the start on Monday, I'm a lot more optimistic, I think is the word, that he's going to be able to manage that focus and scrutiny just fine. It's going to be against a much more, competent opponent than obviously the Jets were. But that defense that Greg Williams was throwing at Brett Rypien last week, I mean, not a ton of talent on that side of the ball, not a ton of great pass rush, but man, he had some unique looks and some pressures and some coverages and just, Greg Williams, I think one of the best play calling defensive coordinators in the league. So if he can hang with Greg, I'm a little bit more optimistic, Zach, he can hang with Bill.
And also one of the dirtiest. And say what you want about Belichick, but he doesn't stoop to the levels of the bounty hunter himself, Greg Williams. And they were actually gunning the Jets for Brett Rypien's legs and his knees and coming after him, trying to injure him. So like you mentioned, the game is not too big for him. Say what you want about his lack of arm talent or his lack of the prototypical quarterback build, but he has this wise beyond his years approach to the game. That's what you want. And what better opportunity for this guy? If he can come in there, maybe not even win the game, but show solidly, hang in there with the Patriots and maybe go down to the wire with them, he could solidify himself as the Broncos' long-term quarterback too. So good opportunity for Brett Rypien, and I'm with you. I'm not scared if he's thrust into duty in primetime.
Let's grab this question since it is the Mile High Mailbag and we are your football priests. From David on Facebook, he says, do you think the movement of the game benefits the Broncos or the Patriots the most? Which one tends to benefit most for the game itself? Let's not worry about it being a short week turnaround. Just for this game, what's your answer?
Well, there's two players at stake for the Patriots and one for the Broncos. It's locked for the Broncos, but it's Cam Newton and Stephon Gilmore for the Patriots. That's their best offensive player and their best defensive player. So I think and also the Patriots are at home. So I just think it's an extra day at home. They get to just have another day of preparation. You don't like that for Bill Belichick, having another day to study you. But in terms of getting healthier or just healing up, it's got to benefit New England.
I think it also, you can't dismiss the possibility of Noah Fant. I'm just telling you, like having an extra day, you don't know. I mean, he's young. What is he, 22, I think? Maybe 21, 22, 23, something like that. Either way, he's young. And an extra day of rest and recovery can have a palpable effect on the ankle that he's bouncing back from. Maybe even AJ Bouye. Like I'm a lot less inclined to cross those guys just automatically off the list for week 5 now that they're playing on Monday, plus because it's not just Monday. Because think about it, this game was originally scheduled, if I'm not mistaken here, correct me if I'm wrong, for an 11 a.m. start Denver time, so 1 p.m. Eastern time in New England. You're getting 24. You're getting nearly a 36-hour additional window to, Noah Fant going out on the field, doing some stretches, pregame warm up, testing it to see how he's feeling. It's a little bit more optimistic potentially that he could play. Maybe not AJ Bouye so much, but Fant possibly. I'm a lot more open to the possibility anyway.
Wasn't it a 4:30 start, 4:25? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was the late afternoon window.
I'll take a look since I broached it.
It's a good point, though. I mean, they don't have just 24 hours. They have 24 hours and then some for the night game. So AJ Bouye, great point. I don't think Noah Fant plays. I think he's 1 week away, and I don't want to see a diminished Noah Fant out there. Bouye could play, but Phillip Lindsay definitely. It gives him another chance, another day to get healthier. Locke maybe, but I think overall it just benefits the Patriots more.
Oh no, you're right. So it was originally scheduled for 2:25 Mountain. That's unusual for an East Coast game. The East Coast games are usually in the morning, but even that still only shaves 3 hours, right? Off my point, which is that you get a full extra day and then some if you're Noah Fant to test that ankle, go out there, pregame warmups, and see if there's a chance that you might be able to make it for your team. So we'll see. Let's grab this one from Richie Rich with regard to Drew Lock. And I don't think this is a topic Zach and I necessarily share a brain on, because I'm of the opinion at this stage, when you're sitting at 1-3 and reading the tonality of John Elway, I think if Drew Lock tells you he's good to go, then he should then play him. But here's what Richie says. It's way too big of a risk to bring him back this week. Why potentially delay his recovery? What if he gets a cheap shot? And Zach, before I serve this over to you, let me just read something that Vic Fangio said today. In regards to him being able to play Lock on Sunday, quote, on what more he needs to see from him. Quote, I think besides just the throwing, which is the obvious evaluator to whether he's able to play or not, you also have to know whether he's capable both physically and mentally to take a hit or go to the ground. That's how he got hurt initially, going to the ground with his shoulder into the ground. The throwing is one thing, but can his shoulder take another hit, whether it be a direct hit from a player or going to the ground when he's getting hit? So that's part of the equation too, close quote. And Zach, my point on that is, if he tells you he's good to go and he's not feeling pain in that shoulder, at some point that's a Rubicon you're going to have to cross. You're just going to have to say, well, we hope he can take a hit, because what are you going to do? Just have guys line up and hit him and say, how does that feel? You're not going to do that ever. So if he tells you he's good to go, then trust him and put him out there.
Chad, you and I don't disagree on much, but I think we do see differently here. And I don't really care what Drew Lock thinks. I care what the Broncos training staff thinks, what the Broncos doctors think. He has to be 110% to come back this week. And not just because the Miami Dolphins is a better opponent for Lock to come back, and not just, to avoid a shot to his shoulder. Right now, Lock's confidence is as important as his health. You have to kind of ease him in there and hopefully put him in a situation where he can come back and get a win. Because you remember, he entered the season with potential, year of Lock, potential MVP aspirations, and it went quickly into the toilet bowl. So he, still being in the driver's seat to be the guy for the future, you want him to have an opportunity where he feels good about himself playing. And I don't think throwing him out there on the road in prime time against the Patriots, coming in cold again, where he's barely fully healthy, if that, is the best situation for the Broncos season or Lock's future. I would hold him out one more week.
The Broncos are certainly trying to telegraph the signals they're trying to send to New England anyway, from the outside looking in, are that Lock is just not 100% yet. The way they're rotating his reps in terms of, the portion that's open to the media, they are trying to definitely telegraph that he's not quite there yet. And there's always that chance that that's just the truth, that what we're seeing, the way that they're portraying it, is the truth. And I'm open to that, obviously being the reality. But my intuition is he's a lot farther along in the recovery curve than the team is letting on. And part of that has to do as well with just listening to John Elway in that Elway Access. Check it out if you haven't. Maybe we can play the audio later. We'll see how much time we have. But let's grab this super chat from Mark Langley, one of the bona fide superstars in our community.
Yes. Thank you,
Love
Mark.
you, Mark. It's always a better stream when you're in it, my friend. So welcome.
Facts.
And we love you. What's up, my guys? Just wanted to say hi, and I hope all is well with you and the Broncos community. Hashtag go Broncos. Hashtag go Braves. He's in Georgia. Hashtag football priest. Hashtag MHH. Hashtag huddle up pod. I've stopped being a huge MLB fan, Zach, and this is, of course, a Broncos podcast. But growing up, my team was the Braves because they were televised every game on TBS. And so I could watch every single game. And this was in the early 90s. I'm talking the David Justice, Ron Gant era with the Tom Glavines and the Maddox and the Schmaltz. Yes, that was my era of Braves. So although I'm not invested in the modern, the way these teams nowadays, Brave, right, I do still have a modest emotional attachment.
Yeah, I grew up I wouldn't say a diehard Yankees fan, but I was a pretty well-invested Yankees fan. And, where they've been lately, they've fallen off from the Bronx Bombers. And I watched the game the other night. I saw some highlights against the Rays. They struck out like 20 times. And that was just my cue. Okay, focus on the Broncos, focus on football. I'm checked out of baseball.
Let's grab Isaiah, 1127, jumping in. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And it's, you've been very active on Super Chat these last few weeks. So it does not go unnoticed by us, and we appreciate you, my friend. He says, what's up, fellas? Any updates on Philip Lindsay and AJ Bouye? Also, is Zach's boy, Nigel Bradham, able to suit up and help out our linebacker core? Hashtag Monday Night Football versus Pats. Yeah, so Lindsay's a go. He's going to play this week. So you're finally going to get to see, hopefully, a full 60 minutes of Pat Shurmur's, design with a Melvin Gordon and a full, Philip Lindsay. Bouye, he's still quite iffy. If I'm not mistaken, he was basically sidelined working out one-on-one with trainers today. Officially on the injury report, I'll tell you what AJ, let me look at this real quick. AJ is officially listed through 2 practices this week. Well, he's not actually on the injury report because he's on IR, so it's not showing me his participation. But from what I've gathered and the people I've talked to, he's the guy that when the team's practicing and going through individual, he's on the sideline working with trainers. So it's not looking good, in my opinion, for AJ this week, Zach.
He had to get in a limited practice at least one to have a shot at suiting up. I think holding him out again, the Patriots, listen, they don't really have receivers that scare me. You can cover Adam Edelman with their quarterbacks that you have and just stop the Patriots running game. You don't need AJ Bouye for this game. In terms of Bradham, I'd love to have him on the 53. I'd love to have him out there. If not playing starter snaps, then at least playing on third downs, passing situations. He is going to help the Broncos defense as soon as he hits the field. I just hope Fangio, it's not another DeMar Dotson where he sits on the bench for 4 or 5 weeks before he gets a shot.
Black Knight on Twitch this time, jumping in. He says, chilling out on Twitch tonight. Anyway, got a question. What would you rather have? Get a free agent offensive lineman and draft a generational edge player, or get a free agent edge player and draft a generational offensive lineman? Zach,
not even close.
Your answer.
Not even close. I mean, the number 2 most important position in football behind a franchise quarterback is a franchise pass protector or a franchise left tackle, right tackle, a future Hall of Fame guard like Quentin Nelson. It's great to have the pass rushers, but how well did that serve the Broncos in 2018? When they had Von Miller and Bradley Chubb? I mean, how well to serve Denver the last 5 years, having no offensive line or offensive line issues and no quarterback? You fix the offensive line. Let's say you have like a Cowboys offensive line, just a stalwart offensive line, just a brick wall. Any quarterback, for the most part, you put back there is going to look good. It's going to help the Broncos overall. I am building the line 9 times out of 9 before I even touch the defense, Chad.
It would be different perhaps for me if you didn't have Bradley Chubb in his 3rd year, but you do have Bradley Chubb. And we'll see. I think this kind of leads into the next question here, but you got Von Miller under contract for 1 more year. We'll see how that shakes out, but I would concur with Zach. For me, it would be the offensive lineman in the draft. Miller 707 though, jumping in. Good to see you, my friend. I hate asking this question because Von is my favorite player, but if Denver can get a 1st-round pick for him next year, he'll be 32. That ain't going to happen. Should they pull the trigger? But he is Von Miller, so maybe. Should they pull the trigger if the Broncos could get a 1st-rounder for Von next year, Zach, in the final year of his deal, age 32 season?
he is going to be, I think, so motivated for the part you just mentioned. He knows, based on the interview we had yesterday about his contract, he knows he's fighting now for his next deal. He wants one more big payday, one more Von Miller franchise quarterback money type payday before riding off into the sunset. So coming back next year, coming off the injury, not really playing a lot, if he doesn't play this year, he is going to be extra motivated. And if you flip him for a first round pick, there's no guarantee what that guy is going to be or who it's going to be. It's a question mark. I'll take the sure thing. I'll take the future Hall of Famer. And I'm not upsetting the apple cart by trading my franchise cornerstone future first ballot Hall of Fame player for a measly first round draft pick.
I don't know, man. I would really have to think about it. And I'm not trying to just be contrary guy tonight. In the case of Vaughn, coming off a down year, coming off an injury loss, a season lost to injury, if a team out there offers me a first-round pick, if it's in the top 10, I'm taking that. But it's not going to happen. I mean, right now my impulse would be to take it. But I don't know. That's a question that I'd probably more seriously ponder if we get to the offseason and we get a little bit more insight on whether or not the Broncos are going to ask him to take a pay restructure. Because if the Broncos approach Vaughn, it doesn't have to just simply be, hey, Vaughn, take a pay cut in your final year. Thank you, please. It can be, hey, Vaughn, we need to reduce your 2021 cap number, but also here's some new years on your deal and an extension, right? A payday. So there's a lot of different ways they can approach it. And several of them include, obviously, keeping him in Denver in 2021 and beyond. So I don't think Vaughn's story in Denver is anywhere close to being over quite yet, regardless of the drama that was kicked up yesterday on his kind of cryptic interview on the Fan. Let's grab Mike Evans, jumping in, bona fide superstar. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Mike.
In order for Vic to take the full head coach, in order for Vic to have taken the full head coach position versus just focusing on the defense, what do you think of making Ed Donatel the assistant head coach? Vic has complete trust in him. So taking some of the pressure off of Vic in terms of the game day, juggling the different responsibilities that come with being a head coach. I wouldn't be opposed to that. In fact, I'm not sure who is the current assistant head coach.
Monchek?
I want to say it's is it John Pagano? I don't know. I have to look into that, but anything you can do to take stuff off of Vic's plate on game day, by all means. But at the same time, Zach, he's a big boy. He should be able to be the head coach and do what the head coach is supposed to do.
I agree with that, but also it's just a figurehead role for Donatel. What does he do now? I mean, he's a secondary coach, but Vic calls the defensive plays. It was just a title-only coordinating job for Donatel. Making him the assistant head coach is just, it's putting lipstick on a pig. I don't really see what he does already, aside from maybe being Vic's eyes up in the booth, but I'm with you, Shad. He's the head coach of the team. He signed on for that. It's not just defense, it's offense, it's specials. You have to be the entire well-rounded coach on all three sides of the ball.
I'm looking here, and bear with me one second. I'm not seeing an assistant head coach, officially a coach that has that as one of their titles. A lot of times what you see, for example, is, quarterbacks coach and assistant head coach. I don't think Vic has actually named an assistant head coach. So I think that is an open, for what it's worth, it's an open position. But interesting question. Appreciate you, Mike. Zeus McPeak. No direct question by way of this super chat, but Zeus showing the love and supporting the cause, keeping the lights on, as it were, at MHH Central here on YouTube. So thank you, my friend. As always, we love you and appreciate you and hope everything's going well for you down in Texas, my friend. All right, this is about to do a jump, and it just jumped directly to this very generous super chat from D-Dub. Everyone knows Dale. In fact, actually, I'm going to come right back to it. I just saw that he had an earlier one. So very generous is Dale. And he lives in Paradise. He lives across the beautiful Pacific in Hawaii. Always good to see you, my friend. And you know how much your support means to us. He says, great to catch a live show. It's been busy. Thanks to everyone who can make it each week. It makes the replay better seeing all the comments. And that's true, man. Being able to watch the actual broadcast and then seeing all the chat replay, as YouTube calls it, only adds to it. And then here's what else he says. 4 games in, Melvin Gordon money was worth the slight overpay. No pay. We go into the season with Lindsey and Freeman. Gordon has kept the running game churning, and pass pro blocks a real difference. Freeman is not the same. Let's run on the Pats with both healthy guys. Yeah, I mean, Zach and I have had to – thanks again, Dale. We love you, buddy. Appreciate that generosity. But, Zach, you and I have kind of had to eat a modest amount of crow with regard to Melvin. But I have to remind everybody that as we eat the crow, we never clowned on or diminished Melvin, the player. We always said he's a good player, and he's an upper echelon back in the league. And there's a lot he could do, for this team. And he's shown that already through the first quarter of the season. Our biggest gripe was, yes, slight overpay. I think that goes without saying. But really, it was the implications on Phillip Lindsay. But that whole storyline, Zach, has kind of been moot because Phillip hasn't been a factor because of injury.
I was going to say, I still think he's kind of overpaid. He has 100-yard game, and he's the sixth highest paid running back, $8 million per year. I think he only looks – and he's played well. I'm not going to make any bones about it. I wouldn't say he's Barry Sanders right now, but he's played well. But I think he looks good because the Broncos offense, for the most part, hasn't looked that great. And would he have been as impressive? Would he have had 100 yards against the Jets if Phillip Lindsay was playing? So what Chad just hit on there is what my point is. Let's see what Phillip brings to the table starting Monday night. He's going to come back even more pissed off than he was before. And I think he's really going to make it harder on Gordon now to establish himself as that guy earning $8 million. I still think it's a slight overpay, Chad. I'm still dying on that hill.
But to Dale's point, though, I shudder to think what this offense would have looked like these last 3 weeks without Melvin, because Royce Freeman, he's right. He looks even less than just a jag. He's not brought anything. And he's received a few swings at the plate, so to speak. I mean, he's received a few touches in relief of Gordon, a few receptions. We're talking about like his games are three rushes, 1 yard. That's what you're getting out of Royce Freeman right now. And so the Broncos just aren't giving him touches. But think about this. Melvin Gordon helps Jeff Driscoll storm back in week 2 after Drew Lock goes down, catches that over the shoulder in the end zone touchdown. Great play there. Keeps the ball moving in terms of the ground attack. It's a viable threat to opponents. And then last week, gets his first 100-yard game as a Bronco. That 43-yard dagger at the end, of course, almost half of his yardage came on that 43-yard dagger.
Which was a breakdown on the Jets' part. Let's be
2
real.
touchdowns in that game for him, too. So credit to Melvin Gordon. He really has, I think, outkicked what I perceive to be his coverage early on. But let's grab this one from Timothy. Appreciate the question, my friend. Is Drew the backup since he's only a week away? # state of being in Minnesota Vikings territory. Very interesting. So the way they're posturing it right now, Zach, is it looks like the pecking order is thus. Brett Rypien starter, Jeff Driscoll taking the 2 reps. Blake Bortles, almost forgot his name, number 3, and then Drew Lock bringing up the rear in terms of the rep share during the media viewing portion of practice. But I stress again, we don't know exactly how it's shaking out behind closed doors.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be just how you laid it out. I think Rypien will start this game, and you'll have Driscoll as the backup, and then all things on schedule, you'll see Drew Lock starting against the Dolphins in Week 6. I think that's how it's going to be the next couple weeks.
Shout out to Glenn Hauser, the man with the most bad A man cave I've ever seen, especially in Broncos country. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being in the live stream. Kenneth Booker, we're not normally known for being fantasy czars. That's not really our bag. However, Kenneth has a question. Should I start Phillip Lindsay as my flex or wait another week? Zach, the one thing about this to keep in mind is I thought Melvin Gordon was going to be the vulture, that any touchdown Phillip Lindsay would post in 2020, by and large, would be a run or a catch he took to the house from inside, from between the 20s, right? Not inside the 20. But what we saw in that first 2 quarters of week 1 before his turf toe injury is they gave him some goal line carries. It didn't work out well, but they did give him goal line touches. So my feeling is if you believe, if you think Lindsay's healthy and you're going to consider putting him in the flex next week, I don't know why you wouldn't do it this week, just because, I mean, we saw at least from those 2 quarters that Pat Shurmur views him on the goal line as well as between the 20s.
You know why he got those goal line carries? Let me tell you guys. Come here. because he's a workhorse running back. He's a 3-down running back. Don't tell anyone. But listen, in terms of fantasy, the Patriots defense, knowing Lindsey's going to play in this game, Bill Belichick will try to snuff him out. Coming off the toe injury, I want to see Lindsey perform 1 week in 1 game before I make a determination. I don't know who your other players are that you can put in the flex spot, but the Miami Dolphins defense is a lot softer in the front seven. It's a much better matchup for Lindsey in the Broncos running game, so I would wait 1 more week for Lindsey in the flex.
Some prayers up for the grandma of the Robot of Doom 5. He says, hey guys, I don't comment a lot, but could everyone send some prayers to my family? My grandma isn't doing too well tonight, and it might be her last. She was a massive Broncos fan too. Thanks, everyone.
For
Absolutely,
sure.
My friend. Prayers up
yes.
For you, and our thoughts are with your family. Hope she pulls through, and hope your family can hang in there. So keep a stiff upper lip and stay positive. Chris Hernandez, a 24-year veteran of the Air Force and a bona fide superstar in our community, not only a superstar, but a Facebook supporter. This is a guy that is, he rides with you. He's shotgun with MHH, is Chris Hernandez. So love you, buddy. Really appreciate the support. Good to see you as always. Any topics, any questions you got, my friend, John will keep an eye out in the chat stream. We're happy to tackle anything that's on your mind. Also, Zach, shout out to Eclipse Stormborn.
Yes, sir.
Who is in the house with us here as well tonight. And he's rocking the Football Priest hat in his YouTube pic like a boss. Love that, my friend. Send me that pic, by the way, Troy. Let's get that up on Instagram. Let's show you some love. Quincy on Facebook. What is the reason Albert Okwuegbunam ain't playing? Zach, it starts with a B. Drop some knowledge.
He's just not. I thought you were going to say bust. I thought that's what you're leading me into. No, I don't just think he's ready yet. I think he's. I don't know the word you're trying to think of here, Chad. But
sorry.
The Broncos are, for whatever reason, they are much more loyal to Nick Van Etten and Jake Butler, veteran players. Albert O can run really fast in a straight line. He's a good red zone threat, but he can't do much outside of that. He's a lot more raw than Broncos fans thought he was going to be entering the season. That being said, though, Noah Fant being out this week, I think he will be active. He'll get some red zone looks. He'll get some passes thrown his way. But don't expect a 100-yard, 2-touchdown effort against Bill Belichick and the Patriots in his first NFL game. Have some perspective.
Yeah, I think if Noah Fant indeed does miss this game, though, I think you would be remiss not to give him a few opportunities to dress him, A. B, give him a few snaps in the red zone, even if you don't design a pass necessarily to go to him. Get him out on the field and make Bill Belichick think a little bit. Like, use him. This is a chance for you. Even if he doesn't make an impact with the ball in his hand, this is a chance for the Broncos to get some utility out of their 4th-round pick with Noah Fant sidelined potentially, in the way it's looking anyway, with an injury. And by the way, my math that we were talking about earlier today in terms of, the game was originally 2:25 Sunday. Now it's going to be Monday evening. The game is actually going to be 3 p.m. Monday local time. So, so it's 5 Eastern, 3 p.m. local time. That's hopefully you guys can get home from work a little bit early so you're not missing that. I would be right now calling your boss, texting him or her, him or her, texting and saying, hey, any chance I can get off a couple hours early Sunday, because the Broncos are playing really early on Monday night.
I'm going to be sick Monday. Don't expect me.
There you go. All right, let's see what else we got here from Oscar, also known as JL Avenger 23 from YouTube. Definitely recognize you, my friend. Good to see you. What do you think about the possible performance of Jerry Jeudy or Tim Patrick on he's talking week 5? The New England defense is weak against receivers. Cheers from Costa Rica, and keep grinding, guys. Broncos country is not a geographic location, gang. It is a hashtag state of being. It is wherever you are. Great question. What's your outlook for Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick this week?
They're going to be heavily leaned on, and it's a good point, because the Patriots' pass defense, with or without Stephon Gilmore, is far from what it used to be. They are very leaky in their secondary, and they can be had. Now, whether Jerry Jeudy can catch the balls, whether Tim Patrick can separate, is a different story. Whether Brett Rypien has the time to find them down the field is a different story. I think the Broncos, the key to win this game, obviously, is the running attack. They have to establish time of possession, run the ball with Melvin Gordon, Lindsey, and Royce Freeman down the Patriots' throat. But you can't go into a shell either. You can't be conservative. You can't play scared. You can't play not to lose. You will get blown out of Gillette Stadium. Take your shots downfield. Get your matchups one-on-one with Jerry Jeudy. Let Tim Patrick go Cortland Sutton on their smaller defensive backs and be aggressive. Take chances down the field. I want to see Pat Shurmur be vertical this week, not horizontal.
This question here from Kenneth, similar to his original question about Lindsey. This one, though, comes via Super Chat. Appreciate you, Kenneth. And it involves, who do you put on the flex? Lindsey or David Montgomery, of course, the Chicago Bears running back.
Isn't he playing tonight? Isn't the Bears-Bucks game tonight? What's the score, guys?
I'm pulling it up now. Let's take a quick look here.
A little late for that.
Yeah, he might have. Let's see. He got that in 6:45. Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah, that decision's probably already been made. Maybe we're just late getting to his Super Chat, but
I would have went Lindsey because the Bucks run defense is
I would have
pretty
as well,
stout.
for what it's worth. Hopefully you did, my friend. All right, let's grab Viagra jumping in on Super Chat. Good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support. He says, I like Vic Fangio, but he seems to be another one of these good defensive coordinators, bad head coach guys. Not saying we fire Fangio in 2021 or 2022. We target an offensive-minded guy. You know, we're not going to lie to you. Our confidence in Fangio has been shaken a little bit by the way this first quarter, because look, you can't blame him for the rash of injuries, but the way he kind of navigated some of the decisions early on, especially week 1 and week 2, and then the way things, that end of game against the New York Jets, which, by the way, Zach and I missed those last few series because we were setting up, coming to you with the gut reaction, which is a lesson to us. We got to wait till the freaking final gun sounds and then we'll come on, because we did miss a key storyline there. My confidence in Vic Fangio has been shaken a little bit this year. I'm not going to lie, but I still think the jury is out in terms of his overall wherewithal and whether or not he should remain the head coach in 2021 and beyond. I haven't seen anything yet that tells me, hey, end of the season, can Vic Fangio? This is an Adam Gase level incompetence. Just a couple of 2 or 3 different things this year outside of the injuries, which he had no control over, that make me doubt him a little bit.
I can definitely see the argument. This was a lifelong assistant coach. He was a lifelong coordinator. He never got the big seat. And you wonder why at 60 years old, he never got the opportunity, nor did he want it. You have to wonder about that. But it's too incomplete because he's never had, through 2 incomplete seasons now, a full roster with what he wants, his vision for the Broncos, his full defense, his full offense. And I don't think he'll get fired this year. I think he'll get all of 2020, especially with the injuries, and probably all of 2021. After that, all bets are off. I do agree, though, Chad, the next head coach of the Broncos, if or when they fire Fangio, it has to be an offensive guy. They failed with Vance. They failed with Vic. I don't know if they'll go back to the rookie, head coaching well. It just has to be an offensive-minded guy, considering where the sport is nowadays. Go find your next Shanahan. Go find your next McVay. Let's pump the brakes on the defensive guys for a little while.
I just don't think you're going to see another head coaching change so long as John Elway is still the head football executive, or at least as the GM. I could see him – I've talked about this before. I could see Elway saying, look, I'm relinquishing the GM reins and I'm just going to be the president of football operations. I'm bringing in a GM. I'm going to hire somebody with Joe Ellis's input to be the day-to-day grind guy GM, help, basically formulate the list of candidates for the next head coach. If this were to happen, of course, if they were to move on from Fangio at some point in the future and Elway stayed on. Otherwise, Elway can't sell another head coach without himself getting sold down the river as well, in my opinion. Dennis Woods jumping in. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Dennis.
Talk about state of being in the fine state of Michigan. He says, looking forward to seeing how the Broncos use both Gordon and Lindsey in the running game. Amen. And Zach, you said it. This is a game in which, you got to get your money's worth out of Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon.
I want to see them on the field together at the same time. That was one of the things that Pat Shurmur and Vic Fangio teased before the season, is packages with them both on the field, using their receiving talents, their speed, their game-breaking ability. This is Pat Shurmur versus Bill Belichick. I don't like those odds on paper, but if Pat Shurmur can scheme out of his mind, if things break a certain way, the Broncos can hang in there on Monday night.
And for what it's worth, if you guys can think back, I know it feels like a lifetime ago, but the season opener what was it, September 14th or 15th, something like that. They started on the field at the same time. They actually were literal co-starters. The first snap included Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, and I don't remember exactly what the play was now off the top of my head, but
it's all downhill from there.
It really did go downhill, but nevertheless, I concur. Let's see some creativity, Pat Shurmur. Let's see you kind of sing for your supper and earn and display some of that, OC, X's and O's acumen that, he's got a really good reputation. Let's see it come out on the wash with how he's using these running backs, especially, it doesn't matter if it's Drew Lock or Brett Rypien. It's a young quarterback on the road at Bill Belichick. You've got to get that ground game going. Tom El Greco jumping in on Super Chat, north of the 49th parallel. Good to see you,
Thank you,
friend.
Tom.
Appreciate you. Need to see more Drew Lock sooner than later, especially against tougher teams, so I can get a fair assessment on whether he's our future QB. Thanks, guys.
One more week.
That's part of the reason why, Zach, I'm of the opinion that if he can play, if he tells you he's good, and there's no obvious, like a medical staff should be able to tell when they're testing him out, like the different things they can do, resistance. If he's going twitching when you do it and he's telling, no, I'm good. I swear I'm okay. Okay, then sit him down. But if it all looks good, play him, because I agree with Tom. You need to get as much sample size in year 2 from Drew Lock, especially in light of the way this season started and the fact that he's missed 3.5 games now, 2.5, as you possibly can.
Yeah, we'll see him do some jumping jacks before the game. That'll be the end-all, be-all determining factor for Drew Lock on Monday.
Flippin' Boots jumping in. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate the super chat. He says, we can't count Drew out versus the Pats. Elway wants him in. And that's what I'm saying, dude. I don't know if it's – I don't necessarily want to play – here, let me see if I grab the next question, Zach, and I'm going to dial up on my phone.
I got to scroll
comment from Elway, and I'll play it so you guys can see what I mean.
All right, let's I'll go through some of these here. John, you got me? The next one? It jumped on me. There you go. Thank you. Levi jumping in, 1999 donation. Thank you so much, Levi. Quickly becoming a super chat superstar, Mount Rushmore. Thank you so much, Levi. He goes, Zach, Broncos versus Cowboys. Drew's back. Who are you taking to win? Is this a healthy Broncos team versus a healthy Cowboys team? Because if so, I do like the Broncos' chances. I think they can limit the Cowboys' offense, and Drew Lock and Cortland Sutton and all the other pieces, they can put some points on the board. But right now, your guys are going to hate me, but I would take the Cowboys. Their offense is just too lethal right now. They're scoring like 1 billion points a game, 10 billion yards a game, and as bad as their defense is, they just have too much firepower on offense, I think, for the Broncos with a Brett Rypien or a Driscoll or a Blake Bortles to contend with. But one-on-one, 100% versus 100%, I'm leaning Denver in that matchup.
I'm almost there. And by the way, hold on, because I saw this today on my phone. Here it is. All right, hold on 1 second. Grab one more, guys, and then I'll have this queued up and ready to roll.
3-0 Bucks. That's what I'm talking about. I think it was Kenneth who had that question about Montgomery versus Lindsey. The Bucks' run defense is just so stout. What else? Thank you, Juana. Levi jumping in again, 1999. Thank you again so much, Levi. He goes, you guys think Pats will scheme against the run? Absolutely. Bill Belichick is the master. I mean, he sees Brett Rypien. He sees this ravaged receiving core. No KJ Hamler, who should be on IR, by the way. That's a whole other story. He has Jerry Jeudy, a rookie. You have Tim Patrick, who's not Cortland Sutton, and kind of no Noah Fant, and a mishmash of other young receiving weapons. So, yes, he will scheme regardless of Lindsey being 100% or not. He will scheme to stop the run. And that's why it falls on Pat Shurmur to be the guy to defeat Bill Belichick. Whether he can is a different story. I don't have much faith in that happening one-on-one, but if he can get creative and think outside the box and catch the Patriots by surprise, they are going to stack the box to stop the run, with or without Stephon Gilmore. You have to take shots down the field. You have to get aggressive and be creative. You can't be scared to lose this game. Go all out, leave it all on the field, and you never know what could happen.
Okay, guys, here you go. Listen to this real quick. We'll grab Pobby. By the way, Pobby, thank you so much for that generosity.
Hey, Pobby, thank you.
Just so consistent and so generous and so passionate and outgoing. You mean a lot to our community. I hope you know that, to everybody, not just Zach and John, myself, and all the podcast hosts, but to everybody in this community. So thank you, my friend. She says, just want to say hi to you all. Great show. As always, just got off work. Go Broncos. Love that. Okay, I'm going to play this clip. I'm pretty sure I have it queued up where he says what I want you guys to hear. So Here's Elway on today's episode of Elway Access on DenverBroncos.com. Here's the clip real quick.
Because we got to make sure he's healthy. And I think obviously when you heard it, you got to get the confidence back. And then not throwing for a week, obviously, or 2 weeks, however long it's been. You lose some of your touch, you lose some of your accuracy, and so you're not as sharp as you were. And so it takes a little bit of throwing to get that back. His shoulder says he feels well. He's going to practice a little bit today, and so we'll see how it goes. But I think, being the right shoulder is a lot different than being the left shoulder, especially being a thrower. But he'll get that confidence back, and, hopefully he can get it and make it this week. But if not, then we'll look forward to having him against Miami.
His shoulder says he's good. What do you read into that, if you read anything?
Well, Elway hit on the same point I was making. It's about Drew Lock's confidence and his mental as much as his physical and his health. You throw him out there against the Patriots, and let's say he's borderline 100% or just barely 100%. Again, he spent weeks last year cold, forced to watch and never getting his break. He finally goes into the season as the guy. He gets a game and a half, and he's out of the game again, injured again, forced to watch again. If you throw him back in there and he's champing at the bit to get going, and he just gets destroyed by the Patriots, if he's not ready physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever, it's going to have a downturning effect on not only the Broncos season, but his arc, his development. I do not want the Broncos to Josh Rosen Drew Lock. If that means waiting one more week for him to be 120%, I'd rather do that, because you put him in there against the Dolphins, he beats the Dolphins, his confidence is through the roof. You put him in there against the Patriots and he loses to the Patriots, he's right down, and I know he's mentally tough, but he's right down on a human emotion side, down in the dumps. And I don't want that for Drew. His confidence, what Elway said, is just as important.
The Broncos are hoping he can play. That's bottom line. They really are. So don't read too much into the fact that he's the fourth guy taking reps during the portion of practice in which the media can view, because there's also some gamesmanship taking place. Even if he doesn't end up playing, there's some gamesmanship taking place. They're trying to keep Belichick a little off balance, because that's what trust on this. Belichick reads the press clippings when there's an injured player, especially a key player. He's paying attention, or he's got guys in his quality control on his coaching staff, or even in the Patriots PR department, that are providing him reports and updates on what they're hearing with regard to a key player like Drew Lock. Levi jumping back in. Wow. And thank you for the support, Levi. And just to echo what Zach said earlier, man, you have become a bona fide superstar in our community, and it just means a lot to us, my friend. He says, do you think John has full confidence in Lock as the guy, or do you think it's only because he has to? In other words, if you can't, what's the song? If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Is John Elway loving the one he's with? Or is this, or is John Elway maybe pining for another quarterback like a Trevor Lawrence? I don't see it that way. I think they do believe in Drew Lock after what he showed late last year, and just the spark, not just what he did on the field as a player, but the spark that he gave to the team, to the players, to the coaches, to the community, to the fan base, to the city. I think the Broncos really do believe in Drew Lock, but they have to have their confidence somewhat shaken by the fact that it's now a question. Is he an injury-prone guy? Can his body hold up to an NFL beating year after year after year? That's a legit question that Lock, he's going to have to figure out a way to answer that.
I live by kind of one golden rule, applying to the NFL, applying to life. I watch what people do, not what they say. And what the Broncos did this entire offseason, Chad, was build the entire nest, to quote Nick Kendall, around Drew Lock. They got the coaches, they got the offensive linemen, they got the receivers. They went all in on Drew Lock as the franchise quarterback. So I think for the most part, I think Elway 95% believes in Drew Lock. I think he went the younger route. He went away from a retread quarterback like Joe Flacco. He really has confidence that Lock is the guy. And knowing Elway being so, I don't want to say conceited, but I think Elway sees a lot of himself in Drew Lock as well. He wants him to succeed because he's kind of living again through Drew Lock vicariously. Also, on the other hand, that 5%, he's viewing Drew Lock like we do, like analysts, like fans, like media, where, okay, we have to be realistic. If he bombs the rest of the season, we still need a guy. If he's not the guy, we need the guy. So 95%, I think Elway has put his chips on the table, his cards on the table, but he's still hedging his bets just in case this move blows up on him. Because the one thing he's learned, Chad, as a GM, you have to have a quarterback in this league.
Well said. Andy, guys, we didn't grab this while I was searching for the Elway clip, right? Andy on Facebook?
No.
Hey, guys, so if you started a new franchise, you're playing against the Chiefs twice a year, will you be drafting offense or defense to challenge the Chiefs? This is the big question. What do you do? Thanks, Andy Rock from Kansas. Go challenge the Chiefs. That reminds me, have you guys ever seen the movie Slapshot? It's a hockey movie. It's like a dramedy hockey sports movie. John's seen it. There's a scene in there where they say they challenge the Chiefs. Anytime I hear those three words in a row like that, I think of that movie. But anyway, what's your answer for Andy in terms of starting this franchise over? How do you set yourself up to vie against a team as stacked as the Chiefs?
Well, let's look at the facts. In the Mahomes era, the rare losses they've had, Chad, have come against teams that had good offenses and good quarterbacks. Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, to go toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. It helps to have a good defense, but it's quarterback versus quarterback. Quarterback makes the entire NFL go round. So if I'm starting a franchise, give me Russell Wilson. Give me Aaron Rodgers. Give me a quarterback to go up against Patrick Mahomes and fight fire with fire. That is how you take down Kansas City.
Without the quarterback, you're dead in the water. And it doesn't matter who your biggest divisional foe is. You need that quarterback. And I still remain very hopeful and optimistic that Drew Lock can be that guy. Manny Wise jumping in to say, hey, name one quarterback that does not get hurt on such a play as Drew Lock got hurt. And that's a fair point. I do think there are some quarterbacks that are just tough and, they can probably take that. I do think there are some. The whole Lock is injury prone is way too premature. I don't disagree that to say he's injury prone is premature. Where if you're picking nits in the fact that there are now questions about his durability, and that being a trope that is holds water or it doesn't, I think you're wrong if you don't think that that's a real question right now surrounding Drew Lock. It is. 2 years in the league, 2 major injuries that have cost him time. It's just an issue. And it's, it doesn't necessarily mean anything up to this point. There's no definitive answer, but it's a question. All right. And the Broncos at this stage, they would be remiss to not question that themselves, to not wonder, to not say, hey, we need an answer to this. Can Lock stay healthy? Can he come back from this injury and stay in the starting lineup for the rest of the season?
I think there's a modicum of concern about Drew Lock's durability, but there's a difference between concern and labeling someone injury prone. And Manny, you and I kind of really disagree on a lot of our points, but I am right there with you. Also, luck has a lot to do with it. I mean, injuries in the NFL, they're part of the game, but whether you stay healthy, it comes down to just falling wrong or landing wrong or breaking your fall like Drew Lock did. Again, though, if he had proper, capable, competent protection, would he have gotten hurt on that play? Probably not. So I really can't fault Lock for this injury when the Broncos were negligent and put him behind the line. That was not optimal for his success.
Richie Rich says most other QBs, almost all quarterbacks get hit like that. They just don't throw out their arm like a noob. I don't know about that, Richie Rich, but here's what I'll say is complicating that was also he kind of fell on the ball a little awkwardly as well. It was just a unique the stars just aligned in the worst way possible for Drew Lock and the Broncos on that given play. But Zach is not wrong in terms of, hey, it shouldn't have had to have come to that because the Broncos by that point, it should have been apparent against Tennessee that you needed to get DeMar Dotson in there at right tackle stat. And they waited, took Drew Lock getting hurt, and then Jeff Driscoll, and then Brett Rypien. Finally, of course, Eli got hurt, but it took an injury to Eli for them to sit him down, which then does make me wonder, was this a Joe Flacco neck injury?
Yeah.
Was this situation, where you wonder, is this just the team looking for a viable, plausible out in terms of, sitting a guy down? I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think he really did get hurt. I know he got hurt, but was it that bad? I do think the injury was real. But it's just sad, Zach, that they couldn't have realized sooner that you needed to make a change, and it had nothing to do with injury.
And guys, show me one young quarterback in his first year as a full-time starter who wouldn't make the same effort on that play. One quarterback, especially a gunslinger like Drew Lock, not a game manager, a gunslinger who is trying to extend the play and make something happen. Josh Allen does that now every game, and he's being lauded as MVP frontrunner. Drew Lock is the same mental wire. He's the same way. And because he was injured on that play, he's catching the flack when, again, like you just laid out, like I've laid out, like every Broncos fan has laid out, it was the protection. You fix the protection, as the Broncos proved last week. You fix or help fix the offense.
All right, last question. It's a super chat from Levi, and then we're going to dip on out for tonight. Thank you, Levi. Really appreciate you, man. That's all we can tell you is it means a lot to us. He says, does PFF's stats matter in the front office? Do they look at PFF? Yeah, they do. In fact, John Elway himself mentioned a PFF statistic in that same interview today on Elway Access. He talked about, it was on the topic of Bradley Chubb, and maybe it was just a coincidence that the Broncos tallied the pressures that Bradley Chubb was able to put on Sam Darnold last week, which was 10 according to PFF. Maybe the Broncos' own tally equaled that. But I don't believe a lot in coincidence. And I just know player-wise, I mean, Zach, we told this story many times on this podcast, but traditionally we've had multiple players reach out to us privately. This was before it became common for teams to get their own subscription to PFF. PFF has a whole different tier that they do that actually providing information to teams now. And that started, I want to say, 2 seasons ago. But up until that point, Zach, we would have players reach out to us privately and say, hey, what was my grade today? What PFF grade me? Because it got to a point with PFF where, you know, you got Pro Bowl accolades, you got all pro accolades, you got statistics in the box score, and then you got your PFF stats and grades, I should say. Those things all combined to determining how players got paid and how they were valued by front offices. So to answer your question about a front office, I do think in the case of the Denver Broncos, I do think that they at least look at the information PFF provides them. How much they rely on it is anyone's guess.
Yeah, those are the key words, the Broncos front office, because some teams value analytics more than others, and the Broncos happen to be one of them. They had Mitch Tanny for all those years, so they put a lot of stock into that. They look at the Pro Football Focus ratings and grades and all that, but it's not a guiding principle for the Broncos. They don't base their decisions around Pro Football Focus, and I would hope they don't, considering how clickbaity and how hot takey PFF has become. They look at it like you and I do. They're people. They're football fans. They want to see what's out there, what they can use to kind of craft their opinions, but not base their opinions around.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here for tonight. Thanks to each and every one of you for giving us an hour of your time. We love you. We appreciate you. We're done for this week, Zach and I podcasting. It's Thursday. Now, normally what you'd have is Zach and I returning for the gut reaction immediately following the game on Sunday. But the Sunday game is rescheduled to Monday in case you missed it. So Sunday, Zach and I will be returning to you at our traditional scheduled time at 6 p.m. So look forward to that. We can't wait to talk to you, and we'll see kind of which way the wind's blown with regard to some of these injuries. Is it looking more like Drew can play? Is it looking more like maybe Fant can play? Well, maybe we'll have more information on that, although I doubt we'll have a whole heck of a lot more insight until game time decisions roll around Monday. But then, appreciate you, Kathy. Then we'll be back, of course, immediately following Broncos-Patriots with the gut reaction. And even before that, of course, we'll have the halftime show. We'll come to you with the instant reaction at halftime. So lots of content left to go from Huddle Up Podcast between now and Broncos-Patriots. Plus, of course, Friday night, you get Dove Valley Deep Divers. And then Saturday night, you get Mile High Insiders. Guys, you got to remember, you get 7 live stream podcasts a week from MHH, and it's the same time every day, 6 p.m. Mountain to 7 p.m. Mountain. And the only exception to that is on game day, where we come to you immediately following the game. So, Zach, have a great week, or weekend, I should say, my friend, and we'll of course circle back and break it all down on Sunday evening.
Of course, we'll be at, it's a lot different than we thought it was going to be. We had a game to go over Sunday, but we should know more. I believe we'll know at least a little bit of some of the player statuses. I mean, we'll have a concrete, ruled in for the game. They might practice on Saturday instead of tomorrow since it's a Monday game now. We'll have at least some news to go over, and we'll all see you then. So looking forward to it.
Follow the podcast in the meantime, gang, on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. And then also, while you're at it, follow at Mile High Huddle. And then do not forget, do not omit this from your life. Following my partner, Zack Kelberman, on Twitter, at Kelberman NFL. Myself, at Chad and Jensen, as you can see for us both here on the screen. And as Levi reminds you, hey, before you dip on out yourselves, please like this video. It's a simple, organic way you can help support what we're doing. And we remind you, if you think we're doing a good job, share this video out there. All right. That's the best thing you can do. That's worth more to us than an advertiser. Okay. So share this video out there. And then our producer, John K, at John K, MHH on Twitter as well. And have a great weekend yourselves, Broncos country. We look forward to seeing you again on Sunday. And then, of course, Mile High salute to the Super Chat superstars and our Facebook supporters. You guys mean everything to us. We love you. Appreciate you. For Zack Kelberman, Christy Jump, the queen.
At the
Before
buzzer.
we dip out. Yep, at the buzzer. She does that time every once in a while. So thank you, Christy. We love you. Appreciate you. You have a great night as well and a great weekend. And then we'll look forward to seeing all of you Sunday night, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. For Zack Kelberman, I'm Chad Jensen. We'll talk to you